Well, welcome back. Today I got a 2011 Toyota Sienna. Needs front brakes. Going to do rotors, pads. I already did one side on this. Caliper slides were completely locked up. I had to get a new boot kit for it, which will replace all the boots in the front. But we'll go through just basic maintenance, doing a new set of pads and rotors on the front of this Toyota. I hope the light's okay for you. I think so. Caliper slide bolts, 14mm caliper mounting bracket bolts, one up here, one down here in the back, 17mm. We're going to break the caliper ones loose first. I'll get my gun to work. Just break them loose. Okay, and just take them off. Set them aside. Them over here somewhere. I don't know, somewhere. Okay. See if I can get my caliper off here. Yep. Okay. So I got this up. First thing I'm going to do, before I even do anything, before I push these pistons back in, I'm going to clean them. We're going to clean them and grease them. So before I forget, because I tend to forget these, I'm just going to clean them off with a cookie wheel. I'm going to clean these before you push the pistons back in, particularly if you're using a power tool to do it, because then much less chance of hitting that boot and tearing it. So we're just going to clean them off. That's it. We'll come back later, we'll grease them. We'll just set this out of the way. Just set it on top here. We'll just leave it there for now. And we're going to go back here, upper and lower bolt here, 17mm. Get that undone. I know you can't see, there's not much to see, just two bolts. One, two. There's the mounting bracket. So when I took, yeah, look at this. I'm really pulling on that hard. These slides are completely locked up. I had the same problem on the other side. They're just, I'm going to pull apart and show you, but they're just locked up in there. Not working well at all. So we'll just knock the pads out, set them aside. We're going to pull the hardware off of this. Always replace the hardware. I go through this whenever I do a brake video. Even when I don't do videos, I do brakes. Always replace the hardware. Let's see if I can show you this here. Get a little more light for you. Forgot to charge my light. So in here, we're going to go in behind here. Let's see if I can get my light. In behind here, where you can see there. Not blind you. And we're going to clean that out. We're going to take a file. We're going to go in here. We're going to clean any bit of corrosion out of there. We're going to stick it on a wire wheel. And wire wheel it after we get the major corrosion off of there, and then we're going to grease in there. I'll show you that in a little bit. So I always stress hardware when you do brakes. Don't be cheap. Buy decent pads. Always replace the hardware. Boots if you need them. I had to replace these boots because one of the ones on the other side was bad. You see, that one's not too bad. This one I can't. Oh, there it goes. I'll show you what it looks like inside. Yeah, see, it's all just gunked up. It's just like corrosion and grease that's no longer any good. It's actually better than the other side. The other side was worse. This is not quite as bad. Let's get a little more light for you here. Yeah, this one's actually a little better. I had to put the other one, take it over to the wire wheel, clean it off because it was corroded. But it's they're locked up pretty good. That grease shouldn't, but it's kind of hard and caked in there. So we will redo these. Let me see, that's my bottom one, right? No, that's my top one. That's my top. No little gasket on it. I don't know what to call it, ferrule or whatever it's called. Let me see if I can get this one off. Yeah, this one has a ferrule on the bottom of it. And the bottom one has that little ferrule right there. We'll put it back in the same spot. These are not as bad as the other side, but they did not want to move very much, I'll tell you that. So we'll just clean them up and we'll stick them back together. I'm going to pull these boots because I have to get a boot kit for the other side. Just pull the boot right off of there. In this case, just grab it, wiggle it, wiggles out of there. No big deal. And we'll go down in here and we'll brake clean, of course, and clean out in here. I use a little brass wire brush. Go in there and clean it after I clean the grease out of it. And then we'll put new boots in it and re-grease the slides and put them back in. I'm going to take this over and file it, clean it up, take it to the wire wheel, and then I'll come back. There's something to note on this particular car. If you look at these two pins, not only does one have a ferrule on the end, they're actually different lengths. They're different length pins, so you need to get them back where they came from. Make sure. So if you forget, like, oh, I don't know what I did, I don't know which one I pulled it out of, take a screwdriver, stick it down in the bore, put your finger on how deep it is, like that's how deep it is, put it in the other one. You can see this one's shorter. That's my shorter pin. So this one is my pin with shorter pin with my ferrule. Make sure you put them back in the right place or you will not be happy. And here's my brush, my little brass brush. And I wouldn't do this if the boots were still on there. I'd be afraid of tearing them up. But with the boots off, I have to replace the boots anyway. I'm just going to run that in there. It's actually a gun cleaning brush, but works good for this. Just run it in and out of there a couple times. Clean them again with, of course, chemical 1001 uses, brake clean. Alright, so they're all cleaned out. Alright, so I've cleaned out my caliper, and I forgot to turn the camera on, my caliper bracket, and I'll just take this piece of hardware off. I've filed the corrosion off of behind where the hardware sits, took it over the wire wheel, cleaned it up. Now just putting the hardware. This hardware here is directional, so there's an open end to it, a little tab like that goes to the middle, towards the middle of the caliper bracket. So I've greased behind where the hardware goes. I should show you this because if you've never done it, you're going to look at it and go, what is he doing? So I'll just wipe one off. Here, leave the other three alone. So you can see how, you should be able to see how clean that is behind there. It's been cleaned up. I just use my brake grease, which is Permatex Ultra Disc Brake Caliper silicone formula. I like it a lot. You can use Sil-Glide. Got to be brake grease though. You're just going to put a thin coat in behind where the hardware goes. Cover it up. Always a big debate. I get comments about it. You should grease on top of the hardware. I don't agree with that. You can do what you want. It doesn't make any sense to me. Pads are made to slide on top of the hardware. Good stainless hardware. All the grease does behind it is displace moisture and keep corrosion from getting in there. What usually causes a problem is if corrosion gets behind the hardware and builds up, it pushes the hardware up and pinches the end of the brake pad that it rides on, then it can't move freely like it should. So that's all we're trying to do there. So got all these in place. That bracket's got all the hardware. I have to get the boot kit. I don't have it, so we're going to get the boot kit. I'll show you that later. It'll be like a minute for you. It'll be like a day for me because I have to go get it. We'll re-grease in there, and I'll show you that when I do that. We're done with this for now. We're going to go to the rotor. So, show you the most important tool, and I've talked about this before. These can be really hard to get off, but see the two screw holes here in this rotor, right? They are 8mm 1.25. Let me find them. Let me find my really important tools that save you a ton of time on this job. These two bolts. Screw them in to the holes. Sometimes these can be really hard to get off, these rotors, but if you have this, let me see if I have my ratchet over here. Let me go find my ratchet. I do have it. I did have it. It was right in front of me. Just look right past it and just turn them in. You should hear pop. I don't know if you heard that, just did a little bit. Sometimes they're really loud. But get these turned in. There it goes. You heard that, right? That's it. That means it's broken loose. I'll get the top one again. There it goes. And that's it. You could fight with that for half an hour without these bolts, having these bolts, and bang on the thing and it will not come loose. Put these bolts in there like that, pop right off of there in half a minute. You're done. So they're the most important tools for this job, these two bolts right here, and of course a ratchet. Alright, this rotor's done. We're not keeping it, placing it. We're going to come in here. I'm going to clean the face of this hub, sand it, get the corrosion off of it. Usually they'll get stuck around the flange of the hub. So we're going to go around this really good. I've got a cookie wheel. You can use a piece of Scotch-Brite or sandpaper. Just going to go around and clean it. One more time. So again, grease the face of this hub. Not a lot. Thin coating. Keeps the corrosion out just like it does on the caliper mounting bracket. The slides. Makes it easier on everybody next time around. Makes it easier to get the rotor off of there too. Just a thin coating. Not a lot. It's got to be high temp. Doesn't have to be brake grease. I'm just using brake grease because I got it here. But it has to be high temp grease. Can't be regular grease, just melt out of there. So I usually use brake grease on it. Alright, these are Wagner's BD 126565E. Wagner. I like these actually. I said this before in some of my other videos, I'll say it again. You're doing this yourself, you're saving a lot of money by doing it yourself. Don't buy cheap parts, buy good parts. They do matter. I've used these rotors for 3-4 years now, and I've had real good luck with them. I've had no comebacks, they don't warp. I haven't had any problems with them warping or anything, which is good. So, buy good parts. Don't be cheap. You might think you're saving yourself money by being cheap, but in the long run, you're just going to do it more than once. Always like OEM, but usually don't buy OEM for this kind of stuff because it's just too expensive. 4 times as much for the same part, I can't justify the cost. It's kind of hard to justify that. At least for brakes. Sometimes OEM you have to, but not for this. Clean them off, of course. Brake clean. Can't look over 1,001 uses. These have what they call an E-coating, black coating on the hub, so they tend not to stick to the hub and corrode the hub nearly as bad as an uncoated, but I still grease them, just in case. I'm going to slide that on there. I'm going to take a lug nut and just stick a lug nut on there temporarily to hold in place. I can't finish this because I've got to get a boot kit for it, but so it's going to sit here for a little bit. And that's it, basically done. If this was an uncoated rotor, I would grease the face of this before I stick the wheel on there as well, because the aluminum tends to kind of weld itself to steel, and that keeps that from happening. But since these are coated, I don't even worry about it. We're going to spray down these, might help if you could see, maybe I'll tilt you up just a little. Spray down where we sanded the pistons before, clean them off. Get it on my rotor, so I clean my rotor again. And we're going to push those pistons in. You can use a C-clamp or a big pair of channel locks. I have a little tool to do it. This is a dual piston. Not much to it. They should go in pretty easily. If they bind up and if they don't want to go in, the pistons don't want to go in, this is double piston, dual piston on this one, then you want to check your caliper and your brake lines, see if either the caliper's bad or the brake line's clogged. Sometimes the line's clogged. So since this is a dual and I don't have a dual piston compressor for brakes, I'm just going to push in on the other side with my hand as I push the one side in, and they both will go in here they go in really easily, which is what I want. And we're just going to run these all the way in. You'll feel them seat. It'll seat down in the bore as far as it can go. And they're all the way in. Just back it off. Alright, same thing here. Now these pistons are all the way in. I'm going to grease them as well. I'm going to grease basically any metal to metal contact on the back of the pad. And I'm going to grease, I've got to check this. I didn't check to clean it. You should, these tabs that ride on the back of one of the pads, they actually feel good, but I'm going to check if they're have corrosion. You need to clean the corrosion off of that. And I want to grease them as well. So let me grease these face of these pistons. And then I'm going to take a look at the tabs that are not facing you, and I can't see them either. So just a thin coating on that. Everybody's happy. Once again, you're just keeping corrosion from getting in there and started. Pushing the pads around. Doesn't take long to do it, but it doesn't matter. Take a look at this now. Yeah, I'm going to clean them just a little bit. They're pretty good actually. But I'm just going to clean them off with a piece of Scotch-Brite real quick. Just come back behind here. A little bit of grease, not a lot. Thin coating. A little bit much on there. Alright, that's ready now. And my boot kit, which I was able to get today. So we're just going to put this back together. Put the boot on. These boots are, some of these boots you have to put like a socket and drive them on. They have a metal insert. These don't. You can just push them into place. So I'm just going to glue them into place here. Push them in. Make sure they're in there good. Seated all the way. Okay. Got a new bushing for the one pin as well. So we'll place that bushing as well. Get off of there. I just want a little bit of brake grease on that. Coat the pin. Just a thin coating, not a ton. So you get in that groove as well. That'll be where corrosion gets in and water gets in if you don't, doesn't seal up. So. These are different lengths, so make sure you get it back in the right one. Explained that earlier. So these are a little tight pushing in. Get them started, they'll go in. Just push it all the way down. Make sure it grabs the boot. You can see, hopefully you can see, hopefully I'm showing you that. It's got the boot, that's what we want. Nice and sealed up. Do the same thing on the other end. Same thing, squeeze them in there. Make sure it grabs the boot. Good. We'll go put it back on the car. Caliper mounting bracket, all ready to go. New hardware, it's greased. new boots because the boots were bad on this one. On one side, so I had to get a boot kit for it. Just put these two mounting bolts back in place. Alright. The pads are the same inside and outside for this particular application. Here's the part number. These are Wagner OEX. I like these pads. OEX 1324. These come with these clips as well. I'll show you how to put them in. A little trick, because they can fight you sometimes trying to push the pads around. So what we'll do first is we'll set the caliper in for a second, and then we'll tip it up to get it out of the way and just have it ready to go. So push it on here and get it started. Try not to fight with it too much here. There we go. Get that started. Just the top. And just tip it up out of the way like that. Leave it like that. Then you can put your pads on. Pads should go in pretty easily. I'm into the hardware here. There's pin little holes in the edge of the pad. You want this towards the middle. Put in the pad. Hold the pad with your hand like that. So it'll have a tendency to push them out, and you won't be able to put the caliper down on it. So same thing at the top. Get that one in place. It's in place, good. Now just tip this down like that. I'm going to move it in and get it lined up here. But once you do that, then it can't get away from you. Holds in place. Now just put your bottom pin in. You probably have to hold this 17 millimeter. Hold the inner hex there as you tighten them, or it just spins them. We'll just tighten these up. These just need to be snug. You don't have to kill these. These are not very big. Okay, that's it. We're ready to go. So obviously I'm going to put the wheel back on. Take this lug nut off. Don't need it now. And we're going to take these out and bed or seat these pads and drive it, up to around 40-50 miles an hour. Step on the brakes. Don't come to a complete stop. Bring it down, slow it down. Do the same thing. Repeat it maybe 10 times, 12 times, 15 times, something like that. And just bed these pads to the rotor so they work. When you get in, pump the brake pedal before you do anything, and you have a little bit of a scary moment as you don't have any brakes when you first go out. So obviously I put the wheel back on here. That's about it. Maintenance, simple maintenance item. Got a little bit of grease there. I got on there. I have to get that off of there. Get some brake clean, get that off. I don't want any grease on there. Simple job, not very difficult. Kind of saw the importance of looking at your slide pins in this one and changing your hardware, checking your boots. These pins were locked up pretty good. Now it's good to go. Well, that's it. Just basic maintenance, front rotors and pads on a 2011 Toyota Sienna. Stress the same things I always stress in brake videos. Buy new hardware, clean behind the hardware, get any corrosion out of there. Grease with brake grease behind the hardware, and use good quality parts. Like I said before, you're doing this yourself, you're saving a lot of money and labor that you would normally pay. Don't buy cheap parts. They're just going to burn you. You're going to end up doing it more than once. If you have to do this, I hope it helped you out. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.